Welcome to our exploration of Edvard Munch, a towering figure in modern art whose haunting works continue to captivate and unsettle viewers to this day. Early in his career, Munch was having rather unlikely scans of a farmhouse in rural Norway. Indeed, the young Edvard, born in 1863, went through agonies in his childhood. His mother died when he was 5, and later his sister Sophie, whom he loved so much, when he was 14. These contacts with death would seal forever Munch's life and art. As an adolescent, the young Munch had an epiphany. He wrote in his diary in 1880, "My calling henceforth is to be a painter." And with that, he abandoned his engineering studies to fully throw himself into the arts. The early works of Munch were such that they were a source of promise. It was in his 1886 painting, The Sick Child, that really announced his arrival as a bold new voice. Critics were divided, most labelling the effort sloppy and unfinished. Others greeted Munch as the most exciting artist of his generation. Love it or hate it, The Sick Child made one thing clear: Edvard Munch was here to shake things up. However, it is in the 1890s that Munch really comes into his own, producing a series of innovative pieces which secure him a sure place in the history of art. Of these, the most important was perhaps the Scream, painted in 1893. That image of a twisted, anguished figure against a blood-red sky somehow managed to capture the modern age's anxiety. Munch himself described this inspiration for the Scream in vivid terms. I was walking along the road with 2 friends when the sun set. Suddenly the sky turned as red as blood. I stopped and leaned against the fence, feeling unspeakably tired. Tongues of fire and blood stretched over the bluish-black fjord. My friends went on walking, while I lagged behind, shivering with fear. Then I heard the enormous, infinite scream of nature. This intense, very personal way of making art was Munch's signature. He did not represent beings or things as seen. More importantly, he painted what he felt. As he put it, "I don't paint what I see, I paint what I saw." It was this philosophy that allowed him to get rid of the forms and come up with bright colours, and experiment with techniques like woodcuts in the expression of raw emotion. Of course, it was not all personal angst. Munch is fascinated with the labyrinthine complexities of human relationships, in particular between the sexes. Paintings like Vampire and Ashes make love and its aftermath, its jealousy and heartbreak, with the honesty of someone who does not know relenting. Take Ashes, painted in 1894, a painting of a woman dressed in white, with red undergarments showing through, and staring at the viewer with despair. Crouched behind her is a man with his head in his hands. It produces the sensation of having captured the scene right after a passionate encounter, tainted by feelings of guilt and remorse. It forms a strong and visceral image of the dark side of romance. Munch's life was like his art, stormy. He never married, feeling that it would interfere with his work. He had affairs aplenty though, most famously with the wealthy Norwegian lady Tulla Larsen, who pursued him relentlessly. Their relationship ended dramatically. During an argument, Munch accidentally shot himself in the hand. The incident has left both physical and emotional scars on him. As the turn of the 20th century came, so did Munch's demons. Years of excessive drinking and emotional pain finally caught up with him, culminating in a nervous breakdown in 1908. He checked into a sanatorium in Copenhagen to go through treatments for months. It marked a turn in his life and art. Leaving the sanatorium and returning home to Norway, Munch began to paint in a much brighter, far more optimistic light. His later works, showing scenes of rural life and labour, are quite far from the psychological intensity of earlier works. One of his major late works was the series of murals he painted for the University of Oslo, which he completed in 1916. At its centre is a gigantic picture of the sun, as a symbol of enlightenment and hope, almost the opposite of darkness, which seemed to characterise Munch's art for so long. Yet despite this new tone, he did not lose the ability to provoke and stimulate viewers. The paintings from this final period of his self-portraits, especially the illness pieces, are as raw and honest as anything he produced in his youth. Most of Munch's life during the last years was spent in solitude at his estate outside Oslo. He continued to paint copiously, surrounding himself with his works, which he called his children. He died in 1944 at the age of 80, bequeathing the astonishing total of more than 1,000 paintings, 4,000 drawings, and 15,000 prints. To this end, the contribution of Munch to the rise of modern art cannot be overestimated. He was an initiate into Expressionism. His work opened up a space for those who wanted to depict not just the physical, but also the inner world, the landscape of human emotions. His justification of colouring vividly and using bizarre forms has inspired many since he was around. But arguably, Munch's greatest legacy is the way his art continues to speak to us today. In a world often bewildering and deadening, his resolute probing into anxiety, love and loss retains resonances all too profound. Indeed, his most famous works, the supreme example being The Scream, have become cultural touchstones, referenced and parodied tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of times in our popular media. Looking back upon the life of Edvard Munch and his art, one can but be struck with the courage taken by an artist who so relentlessly, literally, bared his soul on canvas. He created something that speaks equally to time and place, in terms of the common experiences of sorrow and joy, among all the other emotions and states in between that make up human experience. Munch once said, "My fear of life is necessary to me, as is my illness. Without anxiety and illness, I am a ship without a rudder. My sufferings are part of myself and my art. They are indistinguishable from me, and their destruction would destroy my art." Ultimately, that is the paradox of Edvard Munch. Out of pain and struggle came the beauty that still moves and inspires us well over a century later. His life and his work stand as a testament that art is not only empowered to mirror the world, but help us make sense of it, even in the darkest moments.